the CentreSteer podcast, a podcast by, for, and about Land Rover owners.
Welcome to the CentreSteer podcast, podcast number 134 for May of 2024. CentreSteer is a monthly podcast for Land Rover enthusiasts, hobbyists, and owners around the world. This month, we talk with RoverX, also known as Scott Preston. Scott is a self-described Land Rover power user. Scott has built, rebuilt, and rebuilt again Land Rovers over the years, and that is just one series truck, continuing on in one part or another over the years. He's also traveled all over the U.S. and is a member of the Downeast Club.
He's actually a serial series monogamist.
Well played. Well played. Good. And that is Harold. Welcome to the podcast again, Harold.
Hey.
And I'm John Costage, your host or something, whatever it is I do here. And joining us also is Morgan. Welcome, Morgan.
Thank you. And I think I'm the or something.
Or as long as you get your microphone turned on when you put the quarter in the slot.
You're from Vermont, so that makes you the maple syrup of this show.
And our Dixon is doing important things, which we'll talk about in just a few minutes. He's over in Europe. We'll talk about that in a bit. Thanks to our Patreon and Buy Me a Tea subscribers for their continued support. Patreon supporters received bonus content, including 10 questions, our Land Rover-oriented question and answer lightning round. That usually comes out in the middle of the month if I do all of the scheduling correctly. So if you are a Patreon subscriber, be sure to go to Patreon to listen to that bonus content. So let's talk about the North American events calendar with Dixon. Oh, Dixon's not with us. Why? Dixon is over in Europe in Placid Lassie, which is the C-47 plane from World War II. They're going to participate in the D-Day commemorative events.
He's preparing to re-invade France.
Maybe, I don't think it's exactly that.
And he's got some penguins to toss out of the aircraft over Normandy somewhere.
Yes, several Land Rover owners, including Ben Smith and Dixon.
It's a prerequisite to be on that crew of that aircraft is you have to own an 80-inch.
80-inch. He drove from Wisconsin.
That's Steve Owen.
Steve.
And Steve Owen, that's right.
Owen is not actually part of that crew. He's home in Oshkosh. He just manages the landing strip when they fly to Wisconsin.
Oh, that's just the penguins are there.
For the Oshkosh show. Yeah, the penguins come from Steve. Or at least Dixon would have you believe that, but starting to think Dixon has his own penguins too.
So the Downeast Foundation is where Placid Lassie falls, and Placid Lassie is returning to Europe for at least the fourth time. It was there in 1944, 2014, 2019, 2024 now, as part of the D-Day Squadron Legacy Tour, celebrating and commemorating the 80th anniversary of the D-Day invasion. 2024 is commemorating the 80th year of the D-Day invasion. And if you go out to downeastfoundation.org, there is a calendar. If you're in Europe, you can track down, or you're going to be in Europe on these dates, you could actually see Placid Lassie in action.
And if you happen to live in northern France or in Germany and you see a bunch of vintage warplanes swirling overhead, don't worry, nothing's happening.
Don't panic. June 1st through the 2nd, it's going to be at IWM Duxford. And of course, the D-Day celebrations are the June 3rd through the 10th. It'll be in Normandy in France. And then it's going to be, it looks like, in Ile-de-France on June 14th through the 11th through the 14th. And then in Berlin, as part of the Berlin Airlift 75th, June 15th and 16th. A parachute drop in Bavaria, June 17th and 19th. It's going to be in Austria and Italy, the 20th through the 23rd of June. Some of those dates are unconfirmed on that one. And then it is part of the D-Day Squadron Return Atlantic Crossing, June 25th through June 30th. So check out Placid Lassie. There are Land Rover owners, part of the Downeast Foundation.
And to be fair, Dixon did record the events, but you really couldn't hear anything over the sound of the engines.
That's right, the droning of it.
It was more like hand waving right before you get shoved out of the plane for your drop.
No, I don't want to go. No, I don't want to go. Please don't make me.
There are some events that are taking place. I will talk after the news. We'll talk about the Pacific Northwest Rally that just took place this past weekend here in the United States, and I attended that, and we'll talk about that coming up August 1st through the 4th is the North Star Rover Rally, and you'll get to see Harold is going to be attending that, and Minnesota Land Rovers is putting that on. If you're not registered, go out and do so. There is a limited number of participants, I think, due to the camping that they are accepting. And then the Gulf Coast Rally, GAR, is scheduled to take place October 24th through the 27th. I know that Charles Bell has some family obligations have cleared, so he is going to start to do the organizing of the GAR come up here shortly. So we'll get more details on that as soon as we know them. Looking at the rest of the calendar, we're getting this, Dixon sending us via Morse code, the NELRC, the annual is taking place June 14th and June 15th. And then there's the Dork Rover Revival. It's nice to say Dork. That's up in Vermont. That'll be July 11th through the 14th.
Yes.
July 14th.
They're proud to be called dorks.
They are.
There.
Absolutely. And then the Mid-Atlantic Rally is coming up in Virginia in early part of October. Actually, nope, sorry, not October. It's September 26th through September 29th. If you're interested in going, that is the 30th anniversary of the MAR event. It's the 40th anniversary next year of Rove. It's the 30th anniversary this year of the MAR. And I know they're going to have more camping available this year, and I think also more trails, because I heard they were able to open up some more trails there. But I suspect as soon as it opens up, which I do not know the date, no one's told me when registration will open up, but when it does, when you hear about it, if you want to go, get in there quick, because it's probably going to sell out pretty quickly.
You want to be in front of your computer with the page loaded before the registration opens, so you can sit there and go, refresh, I'm in!
Get it while you can.
It's like buying Taylor Swift tickets.
That's right. If you want to go check all that out, go out to anarch.club and look at the club calendar for all those details. All right, let's get into the news, shall we? First up, JLR sold more than 400,000 cars in last year, thanks to the Range Rover and Defender sales. Total number sold in the year was 401,303, with the Defender accounting for almost 115,000, Range Rover 66,000, Range Rover Sport nearly 63,600. All big increases from the previous year, and those three vehicles were 2/3 of all JLR sales. Sales of the Discovery were up 17,000 sold, but all other Land Rover and Range Rover models, the Evoque, the Disco Sport, and the Velar, saw numbers fall as JLR focused on its big money spinners. Surprisingly, Jaguar sales were also up for the year to 66,866, with the E-Pace sales up 45.2%, XF up 24%, and the EV-only I-Pace, it dropped 20%. Despite the growth in sales, JLR is still sitting on an order book of 133,000 vehicles, 76% of which are for the Range Rover Sport and the Defender. So they had a good year, a very good year.
Apparently.
Yeah, very good year. It's interesting to see the Discovery increasing in numbers. I wonder if the still quite large order book is part of the reason for that, whether people are going, maybe I'll just get a Discovery since...
Yeah, I don't want to wait.
Since they have those.
Yeah, they probably no waiting. But you need a Land Rover, no waiting. Take this Discovery, please.
Yeah. And also more affordable, still just as capable, but some of the style features are debatable. But
no, they're not debatable. It's poor. It's poor. All right. From the JLR press release, they had record Q4 and fiscal year 24 revenue of 7.9 billion pounds and 29 billion pounds respectively. So this 8 billion pounds was for Q4, and they did 29 billion in revenue for the fiscal year of 24. So that's a lot of pounds. What a dosh.
That is.
Yes. The Range Rover a record Range Rover wholesale and retail sales for the quarter and for the year. Range Rover Electric, which isn't come out yet, but is generating strong interest with over 28,700 signups on the waiting list. That it was since they opened it in December of 2023. The Range Rover SV demand more than doubles to 4,099 units, including sale of 20 Range Rover SV Bespoke Satif editions, which sold out for around 330,000 pounds each. And the new Defender
Dang.
Octa to be revealed on July 3rd of this year, with prospective clients invited to one of 7 exclusive events to experience the product. I don't think any of us have been invited to that.
Wait,
Yeah,
so
I'm
are
not,
they saying
I'm
that
sure I'm going to
some
throw
of
down
those-
$500,000 on a Range Rover.
Yeah.
Are you going to throw down 100,000 on a V8 Defender?
I'd be more likely to do that than $500,000 on a Range Rover.
And one other thing to note here is the development of an all-electric EMA production facility at Howell. UK continues with the addition of 300 new robots and assembly lines installed in the new body shop. That was, I thought, a bit of
Ooh,
interesting
more
info.
robots.
More robots and a new body shop.
Are they saying that they have pre-sold some of the Octas, or that was just a mention of the Octa?
They have not pre-sold anything. They have the new electric Range Rover. They have interest on the waiting book of 28,700 signups. The Range Rover SV, that sold over 4,000 units at 330,000 pounds apiece. And then the Octa will be revealed on July 3rd, which some other articles I saw seems that the Octa is to be an off-road focused vehicle.
Presumably they're expecting to sell a fair number of those in pre-sales as well.
And moving on to another press release from JLR, they have signed a deal with Fortescue for advanced EV battery intelligence technologies in luxury vehicles. That's in the press release. Luxury vehicles in the press release. Just note that. JLR has signed a multi-year deal to use Fortescue advanced battery intelligence software in its next-generation electric vehicles. The software will help enhance JLR's luxury vehicles with improved battery longevity, safety, and performance, starting with the new Range Rover Electric. Launching later this year, Fortescue software will monitor all future JLR EVs. This will help to give clients a better ownership experience with faster charging, improved reliability, and increased range. You know what I just noticed in reading that? Range Rover Electric is the name of the model because they're putting it all together.
Oh.
Another model, the Range Rover Electric. Are we going to have the Range Rover Electric autobiography SV?
Well, at least they've taken the Land Rover off the front.
And eventually we'll have the Range Rover Sport or Range Rover Electric Sport.
Are you sure it's not going to be the Range Rover Sport Electric?
I know, that's the question.
Range
Which
Rover
will be interesting if they offer it in an SE trim level.
That's right. RSE. Are we going to call them RSEs? Is it going to be the Range Rover RE? Things to figure out down the road.
Oh, yeah. If it's an electric Sport, then it would be an RESE.
Speaking of the Range Rover Sport, they are being built outside the UK for the first time. JLR is now building its full-size Range Rover Sport luxury SUVs in India, marking the first time the higher-tier vehicles are produced outside of the United Kingdom. Both models were previously built exclusively at the Solihull plant, but the firm is now also producing them at parent company Tata Motors facility in Pune, near Mumbai, for the Indian market to meet growing demand locally. The Indian factory already assembles other models from the British marque, including the Velar, the Evoque, the F-Pace, and the Disco Sport, and has done so since first building the Land Rover Freelander 2 there in 2011.
The advantage there is, since they're selling a lot of Range Rovers these days, is it takes some of the load off of Solihull to send all of their Indian business to India to be built.
Absolutely.
Well, and it also saves on shipping to ship all the parts from India and China to the UK to be assembled and then ship the full.
Yeah, because they're selling a lot in that region. They should be building them there too.
And next, JLR says hydrogen not ready for cars. Speaking recently to New Zealand media, JLR Regional Director Martin Limpert confirmed that hydrogen isn't a frontrunner in its pursuit of low-emission alternatives to internal combustion engines, noting that JLR is looking at alternative fuel technologies. He said, at the moment, our focus is on electrification through battery electric vehicles. We do extend our time and investment to plug-in hybrid technologies. We see the demand from several markets. Hydrogen could instead find a home in JLR's production facilities as the brand aims to lower its carbon emissions. He said, quote, hydrogen might become something that becomes relevant when it comes to energy plants manufacturing energy itself, not for production development so much, but it's technology that could have other use cases.
Yeah, the problem is the infrastructure isn't there for vehicle fuel. It suits itself to stationary, but the other problem is you got to make hydrogen, which is not exactly the most environmentally friendly process. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
great when you burn it; it's absolutely clean, but you got to make it first.
And really, the only green hydrogen being produced in the world right now is, I think there's some outside of Japan, but Japan using nuclear power and putting their hydrogen production facilities on the coast.
Yeah,
Japan has a lot of coast compared to inland.
sure. But the nuclear power side of it, it's clean until it isn't, and then it's very not clean.
Yeah, as they know all too well.
Yeah.
Choose your poison.
Yeah, like somewhere like the US, it's really hard to provide hydrogen to the entirety of the inner country.
Yes, the distribution, again.
Yeah.
It's a challenge.
All right, let's move on to the Defender 130, the 2025 Land Rover Defender 130 updated with captain's chairs. So read you this from Autoblog. There's some changes going on. 2025 Defender's entering its new model year with some minor updates. The most notable being a captain's chair offering on the third row 130. Instead of a bench in the second row is the only option. You can now select captain's chairs pack in the configurator, which brings this total seating capacity down to 7 instead of 8. The new luxurious captain's chairs are both heated and cooled. Feature armrests on both sides, are fitted with winged headrests, and leave the space in between them for easier passage to the third row. A pair of cup holders just behind the front center console replaces the fold-down armrest cup holder from the bench's middle seat. Beyond the new seating arrangements in the 130, Land Rover says it's simplified the specification process by moving a number of individual options to preset packs to reduce ordering complexity. Land Rover already has plenty of packs available in previous model years, but the company says it's diving deeper into this strategy for 2025. Pricing for the 2025 Defender lineup is also out and sees the two-door 90 up by $500 to $58,375. This is U.S. money. The 110 starts at $62,275, up $200, and the 130 at $71,175, up $600. Land Rover says 2025 models will hit dealers in late summer this year. Those captain's chairs, pretty cool.
Do they swivel?
I did not hear that they swivel, sir. No.
So they're not really captain's chairs then.
But I guarantee you they all don't fold flat.
Yeah, there's that. That's a given. But if you want them to be captain's chairs, they have to be able to swivel. You have to be able to sit there and have those big wide armrests. You have to be able to swivel so that when you're on the trail, you can tell your helmsman to raise the shields.
More power to the transmission.
Prepare photon torpedoes.
You use the air compressor to launch missiles. A related article on the same subject, but this one's going to, I think, discuss more of the Sedona edition. Land Rover will introduce a series of model updates for 2025 Defender family focused on improving luxury and comfort, and addition of a more powerful diesel engine. This article is not from North America. Highlights include a signature interior pack with premium features that's available across the range, a captain's chair option for the 130, and a Sedona special edition for the 110. Starting with a new powertrain, the Defender D350 features a mild hybrid 3-liter 6-cylinder diesel producing 345 horsepower and 700 newton meters of torque, just like the Range Rover. This represents an increase of 49 horsepower and 50 newton meters compared to the D300 it replaces, which, according to Land Rover, results in, quote-unquote, more effortless overtaking and towing. Or towning. Actually, I think they made a mistake in the article. It says towning. It says overtaking and towning. The 2025 Land Rover Defender has a simplified lineup comprising the S, X Dynamic SE, X Dynamic HSE, X, and V8 trims. So it's reading those out loud.
Can we obfuscate the name of those trim packages anymore, please?
Available in all three body style flavors, the 90, the 110, and the 130. And moving on here. Moving inside, the new signature interior pack is optional in the Dynamic HSE, but standard on the Defender X V8 and Sedona edition. It brings climate seats for both rows featuring redesigned winged headrests. We talk about those captain's chairs. The front seats have a 14-way electrically adjustable memory function, while the third row 130 is heated. For the 130, the Signature Interior Pack can be combined with a Captain's Chairs pack, transforming it from an 8-seater to a 7-seater. U.S. buyers benefit from less upgrades than those in Europe and the UK and Australia, since the diesel powertrain option and the Signature Interior Pack are not available in North America. However, the U.S. spec Defender does get the simplified lineup, the bundled options, and the Captain Chairs pack for the Defender 130. The 2025 Land Rover Defender is already available to order in the UK, Europe, and Australian markets and will soon reach North American shores. Later this year, the Defender will gain a new V8-powered off-road focused flagship, that's where I read this, bearing the Octa moniker. That is the changes. I know they didn't mention about the Sedona, but we have pictures of it.
Yeah, I wonder if that Sedona Signature Interior comes with the sand pre-installed.
Oh, that would be nice.
Maybe that's what's in the pollen sacks on the side.
Well, that would be sand sacks then. Wouldn't they be sand sacks? Or?
Sandbags.
Sandbags, yeah. Yeah, with the start of that article, I was a little concerned that the Sedona edition would not be set to arrive in the US, which would make no sense to me.
There are a lot of people in other countries that are obsessed with all things America. It's conceivable.
No, I don't think we're getting the Sedona edition, sir. I think it's a Europe only.
Really?
I believe so. I had several articles. And
they just brought one here and plopped it down in Sedona to take pictures, and then they're going to let it loose on Europe.
Yes.
So in other words, Nick Dimbleby has had a Sedona edition in the U.S., but no one else.
It's a good looking color. I think that, but it's only available on the 110 either. You can't get on the 90 or the 130. I think it would look really good on the 130.
Hopefully they do not have the Sedona edition Model X, because that one's going to get a little awkward to write out the abbreviations for.
Or X Dynamic SE.
X Dynamic HSE.
Yeah, there you go. I wonder if the HSE would be the heavy sand edition.
So Harold mentioned the County Exterior Pack. Actually, he didn't. That was a good transition. There is another pack they're coming out with. This is the Land Rover Defender County Exterior Pack. And for the 2024 model year, and now available for 2025 as well, JLR is offering the County Exterior Pack styling package that transformed the modern four-door 110 into an even more of a throwback. The County Exterior Pack is available on the 2024 110S and SE, the 2025 Defender S. Oh, not the other models. It includes exterior graphics that run the lower portion of the doors, contrasting paint for the roof and rear door, one of two different sets of 20-inch alloy wheels, including a steel look set. They're not Steelies, they look like Steelies. And rugged Robustech interior trim. Buyers have a choice of 3 paint combinations. I tell you, let's talk before I go to the paint.
So is Robustech the modern equivalent of Moreland cloth or brushwood or something?
I think it's that tech fabric plastic.
Because it just seems
stuff
to me if you're going for this county look with those god awful stripes and the white steely wheels, you ought to have a vintage look interior as well.
Yeah, I don't know if there's an interior picture on
that tacky cloth they used to use.
But honestly, at first blush, I thought those Steelies were in fact Steelies, but I guess they are not steel. They are probably aluminum or some alloy.
Faux steel.
Buyers have a choice of 3 paint combinations: Fuji white with Tasman blue roof and rear door, Santorini black with Tasman blue roof and door, or Tasman blue with a white roof and door. The grading graphics for the first two are also in Tasman blue. They're Fuji white on the latter. How much does the County Exterior Pack cost? Here's where, according to the article, here's where things start to get interesting. According to Land Rover's online configuration tool and the original press release, the County Edition pack is a mere $600. In reality, however, the elements of the County Exterior Pack will add significantly more to the cost of your Defender build. Selecting the County Exterior Pack will also add a bevy of required options, beginning with a contrast roof. Regardless of paint color, this is an extra $1,000. Interestingly, the contrast color rear door is a $0 option. For 2024 models, the 2 alloy wheel choices were $1,200 each. The 2025 model makes the 5-spoke design $1,200 and the steel look wheels $1,800. Can't you just put actual steel wheels on there? Wouldn't it be a lot cheaper?
That's the point of steel wheels, but
yes,
I just find it interesting that you pay extra for the mismatched roof. Whereas with the vintage Defenders, that's a way to save money. You get a roof.
You get the roof
whatever color you can find, and then put it on there.
Regardless of the design, the full-size 20-inch spare wheel mounted on the rear door is an extra $100. Robustech veneer inside the cabin. Oh, it is a veneer. I thought it was a cloth. I thought it had to do with seating. In the cabin is an extra $600. That puts your minimum outlay for the county exterior pack not at $600, but $4,100. Choose Santorini Black or Tasman Blue as your main exterior paint color, and your cost rises another $950 to $5,050. Those prices seem more in line with the luxury vehicle appearance package costs, but aren't the bargain the advertised $600 price implies.
It's $600, but you have to spend $3,500 for the ability to spend that $600.
Exactly.
That's how the configurator works for Land Rovers. Although they're making it easier now by packaging things into fewer number of packages.
More packages. I do think that paint scheme looks pretty good, but it only comes in that base S model. So if you want to, I guess if you're going to get terrain response 2, the adaptive cruise and all those kinds of things, you might be SOL.
Just get the Defender you want, and you can wrap the roof, and you can swap doors with a buddy if you want the mismatched look.
Or wrap it. Just probably be actually at the end of the day, that would all be cheaper to just wrap it and maybe buy some actual real steel wheels.
And the advantage of wrapping is every year or two, you can wrap it a different color and keep people guessing.
What does that do for your registration?
Nothing in this country because you don't have to declare the color.
Oh, but you have to put that on. At least
we do in Vermont.
We do in PA.
Where?
You tell it what color your vehicle is.
No, where?
On the registration.
Where in a Pennsylvania registration do you declare the color? Where on your owner's card does it say the color of the vehicle?
It's I'll double check. I'll have to go. I don't have one in front of me.
Where on the PA title does it say the color of the vehicle?
I swear it had one of those.
Yeah, Vermont definitely does.
I am looking at a Pennsylvania MV4, which is the pink sheet you fill out with your temporary registration and everything on there. And nowhere on there is there a box to declare the color of the vehicle.
All right, maybe I need to double check.
But apparently in Vermont, you do have to pick a color.
There's probably other
You
states.
do.
that
In Vermont, you pick rust.
Yes.
That is your color.
Much better if you just declare it rust up front when you first register it, because it's going to get there anyway.
That is correct.
Either that or you could do road salt white. That works pretty well too for
It's
the first
two-tone.
few years. Yeah.
It's two-tone.
And finally, let's talk about Paul Smith, not my cousin. I have a cousin, Paul Smith. Not my cousin, Paul Smith, but Paul Smith, the designer, and Land Rover have teamed up for a limited edition die-cast Defender model.
The Paul Smith that gets paid do things that look like the rest of us do to save money.
The fashion designer, not so. I have not yet revealed to either Harold or Morgan the cost of either of these die-cast models. So fashion designer Paul Smith has teamed up with Land Rover to release limited edition die-cast models of the Defender 90, originally created in 2015 in full scale. The 1/18th scale model is a collector's edition that captures the unique design and detailing of the bespoke Defender. The model features working steerable front wheels, opening doors and hood, functioning suspension, and an aerial. The large-scale 1/18th model is available on the designer's official site, joined by a smaller option in the 1/43rd scale. All right, gents, how much for the 1/18th scale size in US dollars?
I don't know, but the 1-to-1 scale, I gotta say, would be about $20,000 cheaper than getting a truck that's all one color.
Yeah, I'm going to go with $500.
$500 from the gentleman from Vermont, the gentleman from Latrobe. Do you have a
501?
You both overshot. It's $235 American for the 1/18th scale.
That's why I win by closest rules.
Neither of closest
Well, if
without
you go
going
over-
over is the official Price is Right rule, sir.
Yep.
All right. Knowing that, how much for the 1/43rd scale? Much smaller, still a D90. Harold, I'll let you go first.
149?
149 from the gentleman from Latrobe, the gentleman from Vermont.
I'm going to say 99.
Well done, sir. $95. I'll give that one to you. You're
Sweet.
$95 for the.
Yeah, you're perhaps within the currency conversion margins there.
Right. That's right.
Still way too much money, but
Oh, yeah. If you want to add to your collection of diecast models Now's the time. Or why not just buy a Matchbox or one of those other die-cast models and just paint it up yourself?
Well, there's an advantage to 18th scale. The thing about Matchbox is they don't uniformly scale all their different models. But by collecting something all in one scale, you can see very quickly the relative size difference between a 59 Cadillac and a BMW Isetta, which fits in the trunk of the Cadillac. Yeah, maybe I should keep one of these Paul Smith models on hand so that when my customers talk about wanting to paint it, I could tell them these things are actually worth more money than a solid color one, and you don't have to pay to get it painted.
Its own multicolor version. All right, that is the news for May of 2024. We're going to immediately segue into a review of attending the PNW rally, the Pacific Northwest rally put on by the Pacific Coast Rover Club. I was able to attend from when we're recording this past weekend. It was over Memorial Weekend here in the United States. In a word, spectacular. It's a great event, well organized. Of course, I was part of the organizing, so maybe I shouldn't, that's not for me to decide, but it seemed to go off pretty well.
Wouldn't be the first time you've tooted your own horn.
That's right. Exactly. It was at the Deschutes Exposition Center where the Overland Expo takes place. The first thing that struck me was how many Series 1 trucks there were there. The moment I arrived on Friday afternoon, I think I saw 3 within a few minutes, but there was a high Series 1 content. Bruce Franklin, who's president of the club, has a Series 2. I got to ride around in that a few times. He was nice enough to ride me back and forth to the hotel, and it's a nice truck.
But most importantly, what is the Dixon ratio of 80 inches to Freelanders?
It was, as you would expect, it was very lopsided on the 80-inch side.
So it was a very large Dixon number.
Yeah, it was a large Dixon quotient, maybe. There were, I will also tell you,
those division by zeros.
This will help. This might help you. There were more forward controls there than there were Freelanders. There was one forward control there.
So it is a divide by zero. Okay.
Yes, exactly.
Infinitely more with one.
I got to ride on Saturday and Sunday. They had trail rides, and I ended up with Bob Steele in his Defender 110. He drove that out, and then we ended up going on trail. There's about 13 of us on an intermediate trail. We were out for 3 or 4 hours up in the Cascades, I believe. This is interior Oregon, which is the high mountain desert. So it's very dry. It was windy this particular weekend, which I assume is all the time, although they claim that it's not always windy, but I don't know if that was true. So it may not be the Cascades exactly, but it was in that neighborhood. And we ended up going up almost a mile, up almost 5,000 feet up. I think 2 weeks before, maybe a week before, a trail leader had been on this trail checking it out, and he said there was 2 feet of snow. By the time we got to it, there were just little patches of snow. But interestingly, the snow, since it had been melting and it's on the trail, and there's a little bit on the sides, it had melted mainly on the sides of the trail, but on the trail itself, which was mainly dirt, there was some rocks in it. There was also lava rocks. That's important to point out. I'd never seen lava rocks on a trail before, so that adds to the difficulty factor.
Yeah.
The snow, because it had been melting, was very wet. So 1 or 2 times, the first or second truck going through the snowpack got high centered because the snow had to pack itself in the middle, and then it would spin and it would slow down. Maybe it wasn't going fast enough, so then it would spin the tires and dig itself out. And now it's just sitting high and dry or high and wet, and you'd have to get a little strap or winch it out. And actually, one had connected to a tree. This 110 Classic got stuck high centered. Put the winch to a tree, and the tree came down. Apparently it was not secure as much as anticipated.
Not exactly the ground anchor they thought it was.
Correct. But the snow really wasn't bad. It was just a kind of high centering. There were occasional patches where it was 1 or 2 patches that went about 20 feet. Some folks used the thin pedal and were able to navigate through.
So you needed these little scoops attached to the rear drive shaft to paddle the snow out of the way from under the vehicle.
The landscape was amazing. They have the ponderosa pines, which are these super tall evergreen trees, lots of evergreens around. There had signs of some of the fire damage that had been there, I think, within the last year, maybe 2 or 3. I'm not completely sure, but scenery was fantastic. Blue skies, a little bit of snow, these ponderosa pines. It was just nice trails. One vehicle was, I think it was a Defender 110, went through this section, and then come to find out they had ran over one of the lava rocks. And so that rock just snapped because it was the end of it. Wouldn't you know, the LR4 behind it sliced a tire on that lava rock.
They tend to be a little sharp.
Yes. Here's a good off-road tip for you. Check your tires, because these turned out to be 2-ply tires. They were off-road aggressive for off-roading, but they were 2-ply. And there was comment made there that were too thin on the sidewall. So there's a little tip for you, maybe especially if you're going to be in that kind of rugged environment.
And that is the difference when you're buying tires that have the letter P before the size, or tires that have the LT before the size.
Yes, it's passenger and light truck. So that was really the only problem, was that fly tire that got taken care of pretty quick. Everyone was helpful and no one got hurt. And we got out of there. We were at the end of 13 trucks, and twice I heard that there was a bear, but I never saw a bear, and it was never confirmed whether there really was a bear or not. That's the closest I've been to a bear on the trail.
Sure that you weren't wearing your fur jacket and somebody mistook you for a bear?
That's possible. Very possible. I can neither confirm nor deny. And then that was Saturday, I went out, and then there was a dinner that evening. It was excellent. That went well. Got to meet several listeners and talk to them, and the other podcasts in the community were there. Steve Barris and Ike Goss with the Under Power Hour had nice talk with them, and also Eric with the in Northern California Land Rover Club. That's NCLRC, and they now do their own podcast. If you are not familiar, they do one especially about Rovicon. That's the NLRC After Dark, and they were there. Got to talk to Eric. He, of course, has been on the program, and had talked to him. It was nice to see him in person, and saw some other folks in person. And on Sunday, there was the RTV course, which from what I can understand, that was the first time that club had seen any RTV course. And there was a lot of demand for the RTV course. And on Saturday, I think Jeff Aarons was running it. I think they went an hour later than expected, because there were just so many people that wanted to run it. And there were people who wanted to run it again to test out their skills. I think because it's a controlled environment, and it was good for folks who maybe didn't want to go drive 20 minutes to go to a trail and see how things went. This is right there on site. It's a limited scope, and it was very open. You're not going to get any Pennsylvania pinstriping or Oregon pinstriping on your vehicle. So it was a really good controlled environment. So that was really cool. And then I helped.
Is that the first time that the Rovers North RTV course has been west of the Mississippi?
I don't know about west of the Mississippi, but I do believe on the West Coast.
Okay.
And helped Aronson out on that on Sunday. And that was a good time. There was the FC 101 actually came out on the trail on the course. Did okay. And that was another high demand day. Number of vehicles came out, and there was a younger gentleman who was, I think, 18, something like that. Came out with his dad, and he drove 3 different vehicles and did great every time. So his name was Alex. If you're listening, Alex, look me up on LinkedIn, by the way, because you're getting into IT, and I said I'd help you out.
Poor soul.
I know, getting into IT. And Land Rovers already.
Yes. And then that evening that was on Sunday. Then that evening there were some additional talks, and there were awards and the raffle. The highlight on that day was meeting up with Doug Mays, who competed in the Camel Trophy in 1997 when it was in Mongolia. He did a talk, and it was really well done and cool. It was nice to meet someone who had participated in the Camel Trophy. And this was, I think, 2 years before it ended. The Camel Trophy ended their connection with it, because I think there was one more in Tierra del Fuego, and then it ended and moved into G4, I think, after that. And so Doug,
and if I remember correctly, that one had the mountain biking and kayaking and all that stuff.
You are correct. Yes, thank you for
in by that point.
Yeah, that was, I think, the second year they had started those activities. I know there was a kayak on top of all the discos that they had. Yeah, they had discos on that one, and they were 300 TDIs. They had mountain bikes and kayaks on those, and I think 3 of those vehicles rolled on that run, on that Camel Trophy run. There was 21 days, 8 different
couldn't have been good for the
sites.
kayaks and the bikes.
I think one kayak, I think if I remember correctly, it was the Grease team their kayak got mangled, and that held them back in the kayaking portion because it wouldn't paddle straight.
It was no longer seaworthy.
Yes. And I think on the UK, the front doors wouldn't open. So they ended up, when they would have to do any challenges, they had to get in and out of the vehicle by jumping in Dukes of Hazzard style.
Nice.
I did get Doug's contact info. Hopefully we'll get him on the program here and give him the thorough talking to that he deserves on the podcast.
At least they were competing in discos at that point and not Defenders.
Defenders were support vehicles.
True. Yes.
And then I flew out way early on Monday.
How bad was the holiday travel traffic?
I found out today on watching the news that it was the highest. Friday was the highest flight travel in, I don't know, a decade, or was it ever? Okay.
I think it was ever. And yeah, that's what I was asking. How bad was it? Because you flew out on Friday and back on Monday, which were the two worst days to travel.
Nary a problem, sir. Seriously.
Wow.
Of course, I was at Pittsburgh early. Got right on.
No trouble at all.
No trouble. There was a little bit of turbulence.
Were you traveling under an alias, say perhaps Mark Love?
I can neither confirm nor deny. I did survive a 737 MAX. Flying back from San Francisco in a 737 MAX.
Didn't have to hold the door on the whole time?
I made sure that my seatbelt, I wore 2 seatbelts just in case. And I made sure I was on the aisle.
Good call.
Yeah, no issues. There's a little bit of turbulence on a couple of the flights, but really, and it wasn't nothing major, none of the bad turbulence, just a little shudders. All the flights went well. That was great. Jeff Aronson and I were waiting for our flights on Monday morning and at the Redmond, and talked to him for a bit. And of course, I saw Bob Steele and Bruce Fowler, Bruce Franklin, who's the president of the club out there, and Jeff Carpenter, who helps out with the PCRC, and Rebecca with the West Coast Overland. It's good to meet her. Jesse Combs, also, he's with Iron Off Road, but he's also part of the PCRC club. Just really nice people. Great to meet them. And event was wonderful. Nice to see a great turnout. I want to say there was over, I think, 87 drivers and trucks there. Oh, that's right. It was 91. That ended up, it was 89 drivers and 91 Land Rovers were registered.
Wow.
Yes.
So a couple people were driving 2 trucks simultaneously.
Yes. And folks came from California, Seattle, a lot of Oregonians, of course, and a couple from Virginia, Maine, Pennsylvania. Great event.
So there might have been some people there from the other Redmond, Washington.
Might have been. Yes, I did go to the correct Redmond. And
that's good.
If you're in that area, even if they're not having an event and you want to check out that area, look up the PCRC club. Nice people. I'm sure if they're available and have the time, they would go with you out on the trail, or at least point you in the right direction. Great scenery, great place to wheel. Really cool. And it's made for that, certainly more than here in Pennsylvania, especially. There's hardly anywhere to off-road. It's very difficult to find places. They're here and there, but the West is certainly a little better designed and able to handle it.
The West is nothing but wide open spaces. Unless you get right next to the water, then it's nothing but cities.
Thank you to the PCRC for putting on a wonderful event, and I hope to get back there someday. And I think they're going to try to do this event again. That's the impression I got. As soon as the event happens, a little too early to commit to anything. Give them a month or two to relax from this one. But I do think
is this the first time they've done this event?
It's the first time they've done an event of this size, yes.
So it's not just the Anarch connection, but they just haven't done the event before at all.
Yes.
Wow.
But they had wanted to do an event, and I, with Anarch, I think helped to give enough of a little push to.
And that's the point of Anarch, is to stimulate these different events and help them to happen.
Yeah, that's very cool to hear. And I'm glad to hear that he didn't have any issues with traveling. I'm guessing that the gremlins were all distracted by a whole bunch of Land Rovers being out on the road. And so it didn't bother any of the airplanes.
Scurrying about. The interesting part about Redmond is there's no jetway. You know how they put that set of ramps that come and meet the plane? No, you come out of the plane right onto a scaffold, switch down to the ground, and then you walk in outside. You're outside right into
those rickety push ladders. They roll up to the plane.
No, thankfully, they thankfully didn't have those. I have been on those. This was literally a scaffold that had ramps that came down.
Okay.
That sounds more rickety, but
it was, you would think it was not, though. It was not. kudos to them. But it's a very small airport.
So be glad they can actually land jets there and take off.
Yes. And actually, I didn't have to call Bob Steele to come pick me up at the airport because he could see the plane flies right over the expo area. And he was like, oh, John's plane's in. I'll head over. It's only like 10 minutes away. That's the rally. Really cool. Next up will be the North Star rally. And then we'll have Harold give us a report when he gets back from the North Star rally.
Yeehaw, I have to talk. Okay.
You don't have to, but it would be nice. Give us a report, meet the people, say hi.
Yeah, I went. It was okay. I'll go again.
Everything was fine. No problems. All right. That's a report on the Pacific Northwest Rally. And now on the CentreSteer podcast, another person from the state of Maine. This time it is Scott Preston, who we're calling a Rover power user. Welcome to the podcast, Scott.
Thanks so much, John. Thank you, Harold, for having me on.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. It's great. So where in Maine are you exactly? And I guess how close are you to Jeff Aronson?
From Jeff Aronson, it's funny. I'm about 12 or 13 miles if by the crow flies. But
which means it takes you half a day to drive there. Yeah,
absolutely. I live on Mount Desert Island. Everybody knows Bar Harbor. I live on the other side of the island in Southwest Harbor.
As we start most of these out with, how did you become a Land Rover nut, bleed green, get the disease, whatever phrase you like to use? How did it all start for you?
Yes, I've heard some of your past guests use it as a Land Rover nutter, but that kind of fits me. I grew up, my dad is into British cars. I grew up with his first car was a 65 Morgan Plus 4. So that's what I actually learned to drive on.
Glutton for punishment, he was.
Yes, very much crash box first gear, and that was a steep learning curve.
Well, but that'll prepare you for series ownership, the crash box.
Absolutely. So a lot of Triumphs and Austin Healey's and Mini Coopers, and that got me through college. And the problem was sports cars don't actually do really well on winter roads in New England. I actually drove my Triumph for 6 months with only a tonneau cover as my only car. So
because the top doesn't keep you any warmer, so why not?
No, it does not keep you any warmer. Maybe a little drier, but no warmer.
I drove my TR4 in winters in Minnesota, so yeah, I know all about that.
Yeah, my first professional job was on Cape Cod. I left Connecticut after college, and I purchased a 69 Series 2A, which I loved to death. And as a teacher, I didn't make a lot of money. I had a 69 2A, I had a 73 Canadian Mini Cooper, and the Triumph Spitfire. Never all running at one time.
No, of course not. You didn't have to tell us that.
That's not how that works.
No, I actually had the Land Rover killed me for a while because it wouldn't start. The starter motor went, and I couldn't afford a new one.
That's what the hand crank is for.
I would crank, but I had to go to school. I taught school, so I had to go in a suit and tie. So I'd go out in the morning and crank start it in like shorts and a t-shirt and get it running, and then go put my suit and tie and jacket, like wrap up in a trench coat because you get oil or something got on you, and drive to school and then park on a hill so I could pop the clutch to drive home. And that went along for a while. And then I got the bug. If you remember in the 90s, East Coast Rovers started bringing in aero coil chassis. So they started selling those, and Mike Smith was kind enough to let me purchase one. I think I was the first person to build one outside ECR. It was chassis 23 and Range Rover axles, and I decided I wanted a hot rod series, so I did a 40 over lower end with a 2.5 cam and a high performance head with a Pierce manifold and a Weber 2-barrel. And it was a lot of fun.
Screamer.
It was a lot of fun to drive.
What year was that again?
That was in the late 90s. So that was probably 97, 98.
No, but what year was the series that you coiled over?
It was the 69 2A.
So that was your original.
The original 2A.
Okay.
I took it apart and made it a coiler.
God, did you ever give that a name?
I didn't. What's funny, all my trucks up till the most recent one have all had the license plate RoverX. And I'm old enough to remember Speed Racer. And I had a thing with his brother RoverX, and I always thought that was a cool thing. So I still have the license plate. I've had it in 5 or 6 different states, and my son actually has it in his truck now. It was always RoverX. After that, I got the diesel bug. I foolishly, on impulse, bought a wrecked drivetrain out of 96 300 TDI, and it only had 18,000 kilometers on it. And I brought it over.
Not even broken in yet.
Not even broken in. I brought it over with the thought of putting it in the coiler. This was going to be my thing. And after I did it, I had definite buyer's remorse to realize how much work it was going to be to kind of stuff that into a very small chassis.
Yep.
And Les Parker at Rovers North was kind enough. At the time, they weren't selling a lot of diesel stuff. They had a 300 TDI chassis get mixed in with their V8 ones. So they gave me a great deal, and I bought a new NAS 90 tub and a 90 front axle, and I built the truck. It had a 2A bulkhead, but everything else was essentially 300 TDI 90.
Now, where'd the 2A bulkhead come from?
Came from the coiler.
Your original
apart.
truck.
So then you have the
truck.
coiler missing some stuff.
Yes, the coiler. I took the coiler apart and sold all the bits.
Oh.
And then rebuilt this into a new truck. So it's the same truck.
So you're
RoverX.
a serial monogamist when it comes to your
Yes.
Rovers,
I like the through line
So
here.
that-
You have this, there's always something about the truck that has continued on and something new as you've rebuilt.
Absolutely. So that truck I had for many years, and I took it to Moab on 2 separate occasions from the East Coast to the National Rally for the Sully Hole Society, and
Wonderful.
drove it all around. But it was starting to show its wear. The bulkhead was starting to rust, and put it up for sale.
Right now, it's been on 3 different trucks, so why not?
I know. I put it up for sale, and the gentleman who ended up wanting it didn't want the off-road accessories, the custom bumpers, the skid plates. He wanted it basic. So I took everything, what I thought the goodies were, off of it and sold it, and then started the process of building another truck. And I was living in Nashville, Tennessee at the time.
Let's pause you there, only because I don't want to lose what you did with now RoverX. So it's like RoverX 2.
Yes.
So tell us a
RoverX
little
2.
bit about going out to Moab and what was that like? And did you drive it all the way?
Yes, we drove it I was living on Cape Cod at the time, so I drove it out to Utah, out and up over the Rockies and back. It was, as you'd expect, hot, uncomfortable, but it's one of those things that still puts a smile on your face. Drove it all over Moab, really amazing. And my first trip in 2008 with that truck, Moab was one of those things. I had never been out there before, so it's really intimidating. I'll be honest. You get out there, and if you've never driven up these things and you pull to a rock face that's maybe 10 feet almost vertical, it seems, and I can't even pull face first. You have to nose one wheel in to get it up, but then you climb up, and it's really a humbling experience the first time, but it was fascinating. I absolutely loved it.
Did you go by yourself? Did you take your son with you?
That trip, my first trip, my son wasn't old enough. I actually am good friends with Eric Riston from Atlantic British, and he was my driving mate for the trip.
Sweet.
So we went out together, and it was a great trip. And 2 years later, I'm back in 2010 with that truck, and just a fabulous trip. Getting out there, being able to drive some of those just amazing trails and really explore. It just pulls you back and makes you want to go back again and again.
Yeah, we've not had many folks on the podcast that have attended the National Rally. Can you tell us a little more about what activities went on there? I think I know it seems like it's morphed over the years and changed. I wonder if there's much different than, say, some of the more East Coast activities.
I don't think it's different in a lot of ways. They still have big dinners, and out in Moab, they have a big horse venue that they use for vendors to come in. It's hot, gets you out of the sun. I think they do a very nice job of organizing you and getting you out on trails every day, because it's all public land, and you're really trying to walk the line of tread lightly and respect the area. I think they do a good job of that. I think it's honestly very similar to the East Coast rallies, but just the topography is just mind-blowing.
It's a surface of Mars.
Fewer trees, that's for sure.
Yes.
How many trucks typically they take off road? Is this 10 trucks, 20 trucks?
They're not. There are some trail rides, but most of the stuff is self-exploring. And I think they keep it. This is going back a while. I want to say less than 150 trucks total on the venue. And there's so many trails. They try to keep it relatively broken up. I don't think I ever was on a trail with more than 10 or 15 trucks.
Is it all guided, or are you going off like
there are a few? Yeah, there are a few group trips, but most of it's self-guided. Just a fabulous time.
All right, so you've gone to the National Rally now twice in your some sort of
RoverX.
RoverX. There we go. Let's just say RoverX. I like that.
It's a variable.
But this is the 300 TDI, and then you get back and a gentleman buys it. Do you know what happened to that? To what the gentleman bought? Is that still around? Do you know who bought it?
Yes, it is. It's owned by a fireman in California.
Oh,
and I've heard from him a couple times because he's called me just to question. I actually made my own wiring harness to the truck, and I gave him my own diagram and stuff. So he had a couple of questions over the years. Yeah, it's still living a good life out in dry California.
Oh, wonderful.
It's in Southern California right now.
What happens then? So you're now roverless, I take it.
I am. Well, you're never roverless.
It's got all the parts.
Yes.
He's got the off-road parts.
So I sold that, and I started accumulating parts to build another 90, another 300 TDI 90. I bought another drivetrain. But during the interim, I bought a Saudi spec D1 that I converted to 300 TDI 5-speed. It was a V8 when I got it, and drove that around for a bit. My son was in high school and just coming up to his senior year. He had decided he wanted to be a mechanic and wanted to build a truck. So he had saved up money cutting lawns and doing a lot of jobs. We bought I don't know if Gerald Ruderman, a longtime Rover guy in the Northeast, he had a 300 TDI Range Rover Classic automatic that he drove around, and he was selling. We had called him and said, interested in the truck for Harrison, my son. And he's, yeah, we'll sell it. We'll make a deal, and I'll deliver it to you in Nashville. So,
wow.
Great. It showed
Can't
up.
beat that.
No, but as Harold will well understand, he said it's a little rusty.
Oh,
and when it showed
your
up,
son needed a project, didn't he?
when it showed up, my wife immediately dubbed it tetanus because you needed your shots to get in it.
Oh, well.
We had that truck, which he drove around for about 6 months. Out of the blue, a friend in Cookeville, Tennessee called and said, there's a Range Rover Classic in the junkyard. You got to come check it out.
Ooh.
So we grabbed the trailer and we drove out to Cookeville. And here was this white 95 soft dash in a junkyard. We were like, why is this truck here?
Yeah.
And it was clean. It had 170,000 miles on it. 140 showed on a Dallas service book. We opened the hood and it had new heads and wires. I'm like, why is this truck here? We made a deal. We bought the whole thing for $1,000 and dragged it up on a trailer.
That.
We got it home, and I said, let's see if we can get this running. Before we go too crazy, let's see about this. We got it to crank, but it wouldn't do anything. I said, hey, lift the back rugs out and pull the fuel pump out. Let's see what's going on in there. My son pulled the fuel pump, and it was a new fuel pump. As he lifted it out, it had a blue shop rag completely wrapped up on the bottom, just sucked up into the fuel pump.
Yep.
Pulled it off, put it back in, started right up. I could see the previous owner going, I spent all this money on this truck. I'm done. Just send it away.
Yep.
Any idea how it arrived where it did? Did you ever find out?
No, just that it was in the junkyard. It actually came with keys and everything, but I got a title with it.
They junked it.
So
wow.
They junked it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, you stole that truck.
You did.
Dude.
You did. Is that now RoverX?
That is now RoverX. That is my son Harrison's truck. We took the two trucks. He wanted a 5-speed, not an automatic. So we got a 5-speed R3 gearbox, and we put the 300 TDI into his Range Rover Classic. When he graduated, we did another trip out west. So we drove from Nashville. We hit the Scar Rally. And then we drove out to Moab and did another week driving around backcountry out there with that truck with some friends from the Arizona Club, and then drove home. The drive home always seems to take longer than the drive out. I don't know why.
Does it not? Yeah.
Yeah. If you're not broken, it seems to take longer.
Yes. That truck has fared very well. We actually just did another trip with it last year. Our friends out in Arizona run this event called the Utah Traverse. Do you know John Edelman from Knightsbridge?
Yes, absolutely, yes.
They're sponsors.
Mhm.
So we went out with John Edelman and some other friends out there, and we did a 690-mile backcountry tour of Utah with him in Harrison's truck. Just amazing, just driving to these unbelievable sites and camping. But we started from Maine this time, a little farther away.
Wow.
And
wow.
yeah, it was about 3,000 miles in 2 weeks. And it ran like a top. We had zero problems with the truck. Several of the trucks broke, but not his.
Excellent result.
So,
That's good. Yes. And is that still with your son? Does Harrison still have that?
Yes, he still has it. He's used it, and it's a little more dinged and dented than it started its life. He loves it. He's hoping to do a full kind of restoration down the road a little bit,
Sure.
but he loves that truck very much.
So what happens with your personal Rover ownership? You had the Saudi spec and the Range Rover Classic. They became one, right? That was the
the Saudi spec I drove for a little bit and it sold.
Okay,
just about a year, and then I started building my 90, and it was a budget build. This last truck, I had several friends really help me out. The guys from Cityside Garage in Boston, I was able to buy a chassis from them. They actually gave it to me. It was an NAS chassis that needed a rear cross member. So I paid shipping and I got a free chassis.
You find good deals, don't you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I know a lot of people. It's a lot of years. So I got that and did the work on that. I got a 2A bulkhead from a friend with a title. That was how it was titled, another 69 2A. And grafted, changed, you have to trim and tweak a couple things. One of the problems with a series dash on a 90 is you can't run one-piece doors. They don't actually fit. So
not well, that's for sure.
No. So with this one, I took the tray off and narrowed it by 2 inches and then reattached it so I can run one-piece 90 doors.
Yeah, I would have just ran 2-piece doors. I'm putting 2-piece doors on my Defender because I like them better, but that's me.
Yes, I like the 2-piece doors. At this point, it's a little more comfortable just to roll down the window.
All right, yeah, to each his own, right?
Yep. So did that, and then was getting this ready, had fit and finished, put it together a couple times, and trying to decide if I'm going to paint it. And there's a big galvanizer right in Nashville. For less than $400, I made the call to hot dip every part. So the chassis, every skid plate, all the door frames, the hood frame, all the capping, every bracket. There is not the seat box storage pieces. I took it all apart and hot dipped it all for less than $400.
Everything that wouldn't melt in the molten zinc pool went in there. Yeah.
And the bulkhead, and then put it all back together. I think this is the best of all worlds.
Yeah.
So it's the truck I drive now. This is the new thing. So I loved my 300 TDI, but I got a chance to drive a friend's 2.8 Power Stroke, which is the M&D version. And
it's a 300 TDI that's been punched out to 2.8.
Exactly. I did that work. We bought the kit from M&D in the UK. And I figured if you're in for a penny, you're in for a pound. So I did a high-performance head from Turner, and I did the VNT turbo with a larger intercooler. And It is amazing to drive. It is the first TDI Rover that's a modern TDI. I can go uphill in fifth gear. It just runs. It is just simply amazing to drive.
And that's your current Rover? Is that RoverX?
Yeah, that's the one it's not RoverX. It got a new name. This is the one you saw at the 75th. The license plate is Sully Hall.
Oh, okay.
Yes, okay.
Because RoverX is taken by his son's truck.
By my son's truck, yes.
Could have been Rover Y.
It could have been.
or
Rover Z.
Rover Z.
Because he's got many of them. So
that's true. Right. Rovers. Yeah, exactly.
Rovers.
What other modifications have you done to Sully Hall?
Sully Hall has a full Rover Time Engineering 3-inch lift, caster-corrected front radius arms and heavy-duty rear trailing arms. It has Tom Wood drive shafts front and rear, just to make everything work better and not break. It has Great Basin heavy-duty axles front and rear with ARB air lockers. I went and got the competition version of the safety devices internal external cage.
Wow.
So instead of coming around the side, it comes up over the roof, and then it has a rear divider that comes right down behind the seats, and then it welds right to the chassis. I have mounts that welded to the chassis before we dipped it. It's set to go, and it's super comfy to drive now. It has heated seats. And
what kind of seats? Did you get them out of a Range Rover or something?
No, they were my series seats. I put new foam in them. I bought a set of seats from Les Parker, actually, and then new foam and heated seat mat modules in them. The goal is down the road, I want to do the M&D recirculating heat and AC system, which is super nice. So a lot of little things. And right now I work for construction. The back is all set up with those Milwaukee pack-out kits.
Yeah.
So they just lock all into place and keep your tools from bouncing around.
What adventures have you gotten into with Sully Hall?
Right now, not much. Life has gotten in the way a little bit. I've been meaning to do some more adventures. It's mostly around New England. I finally got it up on the road. It was off the road for about a year getting the new engine installed. It takes time to bore out the block and get all those parts. I had a good friend help me build the engine. He was very kind and not charging me ridiculous prices.
Yes.
So I was on his timetable. It actually only got up on the road about 3 months before the 75th.
You heeded our advice and you were getting your Rover ready.
I was getting my Rover ready. I did heed the advice. So
did the countdown help? Was that good? We started like a year and a half in advance.
Being on the meetings with you and on the board, that you do feel the pressure. You have to show up with something.
Right. That's true. So really going to the Jubilee was your really first adventure then in Sully Hall.
It was really my first adventure, and I don't know how much driving you got to do at the event. I got very
same here. Yes.
It was so much fun. I became friends with Nick Rogers, who was one of our luminaries there, and Nick Dimbleby, who I knew before. So Nick Rogers was like, I'd like to drive a truck. I said, Nick, take my truck. He's like, you just put it together. I'm like, so I've broken everything at some point. You're not going to hurt it. So I tossed him the keys, and him and Nick Dimbleby tore up and down the mountain all day. And he came back and I need to build one of these. I'm like, really? So I started laughing. And so I still need to get with Nick Dimbleby, because when you drive, you never have pictures of your own truck. I have almost zero pictures of my truck.
Yeah, it's very difficult. I know. It's extremely difficult.
Nick Dimbleby said, I have a ton of pictures of your truck. I'm like, can I have them? So I still haven't gotten them from him. I have to get the pictures, because all I ever have pictures is everybody else's trucks.
Well, that's cool.
One of the big things with the Jubilee, it was just so amazing to get to meet all these people. I think you remember I have a poster. It's hanging in the room behind me of the 75th, and I have your signature from the CentreSteer podcast. I have Nick Dimbleby, all the luminaries, and I'm laughing. I get to these people, and I'm like, okay, I'm a little bit of a fanboy here. I'm going to show my true colors, but you are the guys I grew up looking up to. Daphne Green, I said, I'm envious. Yes. I see you out there doing this stuff, and this is the stuff that I grew up watching. And so I got them to sign, and so I had that framed in the other room. It was just such an amazing event to see all these cool people. I got to share a couple of drinks with Nick Dimbleby and Nick Rogers and his girlfriend Laura, and
all the Nicks.
Oh yes.
Can you believe it's coming up on a year?
It really blows my mind.
Yeah.
My mind.
My takeaway from that event was it was so big that I don't think I probably saw even a third of the people that were there.
No, it was very tough. It was difficult. You're right, Harold. It was tough. It was tough just to get out of the pavilion, the main area there off the deck, and see what was going on. Were you able to check out any of the Bill Cooper brought the Pink Panther? There were Series 1s there. Did you get a chance to check out any of those trucks?
There was the CentreSteer was there.
CentreSteer replica.
That was amazing. I can't remember who brought that.
So the owner's name is Jim Macri.
Okay.
He has a
you.
place up in Vermont called High Meadow Farms, and he's got a great collection. But he had his people, including Glenn Parent. You may know Glenn, but Glenn was
I
on
know
the
the
show.
name, yes.
Yeah, he was head of the team that researched and faithfully replicated that CentreSteer. That's all from pictures and a few sketches and
Yeah, they traveled to the UK, and I think got a little bit of schematics that were available, not many.
Yeah, since the original doesn't exist anymore, they just had to figure it out.
Macri let me sit in the CentreSteer replica, but I had to take my shoes off. So there I am,
as you should.
As I am
Wipe
there,
your feet.
I took pictures in socks. I was wearing socks and sitting in the truck. I was like, okay, sure, I'm happy to do that. It was very cool.
You're lucky he didn't make you put on white gloves or something.
Yeah, probably should have. Yeah. And then I got to ride in Bill Cooper's Pink Panther. That was fun. That to me was a personal highlight, riding in the Pink Panther.
I got to ride in that too. So that was an amazing trip. He drove me around the little area. I asked him, I said, Bill, would you at some point can I get a ride in this? He said, let's go right now. I'm like, okay, I'm there.
Yep. That's it.
Let's go.
Yeah. Don't waste time on that offer.
You were manning the checkpoint, the choke point for getting on the trail, if I'm not mistaken. Is that right?
Yes, I ran rally control for the 75th.
Speaking of it being such a large event, not seeing everybody, I think I saw you twice the whole weekend.
I saw everybody at least once a day as they trundled through and trundled back out. But what's hard being the traffic cop there, I think I'm at the point in my life where I always think you're standing on the shoulders of giants. All these great people in the Rover community have come before me. I'm in the Rover community. My first event I ever attended was Owl's Head in Maine. It's a little event, the Transportation Museum, and my truck was running like shit. And Bruce Fowler comes over and says, "Oh, that's running horrible. Let me show you how to tune it up." These are the people that have helped me and been kind to me my whole life, and all that stuff comes around. So I like to give back whenever I can.
Thanks for doing that. That's not easy work, certainly, and that you didn't get a chance to go enjoy the event yourself as much as you would have liked.
No, but
stand there at the bridge and ask everybody the 3 questions as they come up to it.
Questions 3.
And, believe it or not, Sub got it wrong.
They got launched over the hill.
You've been to the Jubilee, been involved in an ARC, which is great.
Yep.
What other previous events have you been to or attended, or are you part of any clubs where you've maybe helped out with events or attend regular?
So I've been fortunate to be able to travel to a lot of events. A lot of people always go to MAR or 1 or 2 or events. Those are events, and I've been fortunate that I've been involved in the Bay State Rover that's now Mass Rovers. I was in Connecticut Rovers for a time, Downeast Land Rover Club currently, Ottawa Valley, been to their birthday party and so much fun. I've been down to Virginia, MAR many times. I've been wet a number of years.
Well, yeah, that's a given. That's a given. If you're going to MAR.
If you go to MAR and you've never been wet, you haven't been to MAR.
I've been to SCAR, which was just amazing. If you haven't been out to Texas, the
Barnwell
SCAR Rally
Mountains, that's a nice venue.
I've been to the National Rally in Moab. I've been to I haven't been to the Colorado one, but I've been to Moab on 3 occasions. So that's been a lot of fun. And then a lot of random stuff, a lot of trips with friends. This year, I really wanted to go to the Pacific Northwest for the Anarch event, but that didn't work out. But I will be at the Minnesota Rally. I'll be attending that and really excited. And
that is the North Star Rally for those who are listening.
North Star Rally, yes.
Will you be driving there? Will that be the Sully Hall?
Right now, I will be flying.
There was a pause. I'm leaving the pause in. I'm leaving the pause in the podcast. I like that pause.
Either he's thinking his choice or he's trying to figure out a way to admit to us that he's not bringing a Rover.
I would love to figure out how to go to that and bring a Rover. It's a long way. I've also committed to helping Rovers North and Jeff Aronson, a good friend, run the RTV course.
So you will be at the North Star Rally.
I'll be at the North Star Rally with Jeff. And what's fun, Jeff and I just went a couple of weeks ago to the Rovers at Wintergreen.
Okay.
And so down to Virginia, and we drove down and back together. And as we were driving by New Jersey, the Land Rover home office, Jeff said, "Have you ever been to the home office?" I said, "No, they're not going to let me in." And he said, "Let's go over and see." I said, "Sure, we can pull up in front." We pull up in front and we park, and I'm checking something, and Jeff goes walking in. He comes back out. He goes, "They wouldn't let me in." I said, "I can hear him from here." I said, "They were like, 'Sir, leave here. We're going to stick the dogs on you.'" So, but we did a fun bowing in front of Land Rover Mecca and posted our wops at that Mawa.
Yeah. I think they did that just for Jeff. Mawa.
Mawa, yes.
I hear about the Northeast Club. Where exactly is that? I've never really known. What part of I guess that's in the Northeast.
So it's Downeast Land Rovers, which would be just Maine so the Downeast,
as in Downeast, Maine.
Downeast, Maine. And it's a loose collection. There's a lot of little Rover events, but most people know the big one through Bruce Fowler as the Winter Romp. I'm actually going over, I think, June 16th to do some Winter Romp trail prep at the Green.
So you've helped out to build out that site, and now that it's a conservancy or conservatory, what's the word I'm looking for?
It's Millennial Green, I think is the official name, and it's a preserved area that keeps it getting expanded.
Yeah, good
and
for
they
you.
do work weekends through the summer to make the trail a little nicer.
Yeah, things get busy up there doing maintenance during the 1 month of summer.
It is the 1 month of summer. It is the 1 month. What do they say? It's 3 months of bad skiing. That's what we have.
Right.
In Minnesota, it was 3 months of good ice fishing and 9 months of bad ice fishing.
Yes.
That's good. I'm glad you helped out to keep that's a great event and a venue. We talk often, of course, about the Maine Winter Romps. That's good to hear someone involved and can thank you for, in addition to Bruce Fowler, helping out with that event.
Yeah, it's really Bruce. Bruce is the mastermind behind this, and he is the driving force. And so many clubs come up: the Connecticut Club, the Massachusetts Club, the Downeast Club. So many people give of themselves to make that work.
I like now that there's that central point. The big campfire, and Habitat has their shed, so you can get a hot chocolate and hang out.
Which is great for Habitat as well.
Yes, I'm working on a big donation this year for Habitat. So hopefully, we'll see. I've gotten the okay from Bruce, so we'll see how that goes.
One thing I really like about the romp, and Bruce has done a really good job of this, it really helps the local organizations in that area.
Absolutely. Bruce is so wonderful about making sure we really help out the local restaurants, the hotels, everything, and really give back to the community. That was really the start of it. I remember going, I don't know if I went to the first romp, but maybe the second or third, and went for several years. And it was really about giving back and supporting a very quiet community in the wintertime.
All right, Scott, you've been to all these events. And you've had a number of Rovers now. Is there a Rover that you don't have, or that maybe you've seen in an event has something caught your attention?
Yeah, and it actually just came about out of the blue. A good friend of mine, John McKelvey in St. John's, New Brunswick, emailed me with an ad for a 1951 Series 1.
80-inch.
80-inch. Growing up with my dad having a Morgan, we did a factory restoration on that car when I was 18, and I really loved going back. It also hit me that it was an 80-inch, and I've given myself 4 years to get it, so it's 80 for 80. Take it to the 80th event, and
look at that! I didn't even think of it until now. You're right.
And I'm sitting here looking at the video and thinking, wow, he doesn't look like he's 76 years old.
Yeah, I was. Yes, that's a good point. Yes. So, okay, yes, you now have 4 years to prepare your 80 inches to take it to the 80th. Land Rover 80th.
Les Parker, who's a good friend, I don't know if Les just got a new kidney.
He found a kidney.
He found a kidney.
Excellent.
He found a kidney in Tampa.
We had him on the show campaigning for the kidney a while back.
Yeah. He just picked up a Series 1 as well. So we're going to push each other to make sure we both get to the 80th event with our 80-inch trucks. That will be a big thing. I've already started my Series 1 education, because all the oldest trucks I've had were in the 60s, my 2A.
And there's a big
Dixon's
difference.
been great. Yes, there is a big difference. Dixon is already telling me what I should and shouldn't buy. And Ben Smith, I've been told, has a stash of chassis hidden somewhere. So I'm going to try to see if I can get a chassis because mine is definitely needed replacing.
Ben Smith has a stash of all kinds of stuff.
I know. I'm hoping to get down to Blacker Than Night this year to his event, get a little Series 1 knowledge smacked on me.
Series 1, do you have it in your possession yet, or it's on its way? Is it a Canadian spec vehicle?
It is a Canadian spec vehicle. Dixon helped me track it down. It was built in May of 51 and imported by Roots Toronto in June of 51.
Nice.
And it has lived its life in Canada. It is a left-hand drive, hardtop. And the reason I bought it is the truck was on a farm. So it is amazingly complete. My friend John McKelvey, who lives up in Vermont, who just went and collected it for me, it's in his barn. He said the only two things that are missing are the center dash cluster is completely gone and the lid for the center of the seat box. And he said, I have one of those. I have a spare. So I need a
that
gauge
can be made
cluster.
up pretty easily if need be.
I need to get gauges, but other than that, he said, everything is there. It's one of those trucks. It's hard. It's a little tatty. It's certainly rough, but nobody's picked it over and nobody's pulled it apart. There hasn't been any major modifications or beat up. If you've done any kind of Land Rover restoration, building trucks out of parts, the last couple has been a challenge because it's all these little pieces that are hard to find. And starting out with a complete truck makes a huge difference.
That's one of those things where you're almost be tempted just to get it running and then just leave it rough and tatty just for the fun of it.
I'm certainly going to have to get it. It's a 1.6 liter engine. I want to see what it needs to get it up and running. The chassis is gone, the road salt and everything.
Right.
He said there's just nothing to even repair to it. The chassis would be the first major hurdle, but I really want to just keep it. I'm not looking for a garage queen. It's something I want to drive around and take to events. And if I put more dents in it, that's okay. This is what it was made for.
So it was more than just a farm truck then. Sounds like they used it on the roads in New Brunswick.
Yes, it has a plow attachment at one point in the front, so it definitely plowed snow. It had some interesting repairs to the hardtop, which was amazing, just the pictures. But they forklifted it up onto the trailer, and it's now securely stashed away in John's barn waiting for me to go collect it.
Good luck with the restoration. You have to keep us up to date and
yes.
see it out there somewhere. Have you ever driven a Series 1?
Yes, I got my friend Quentin Aspen, Q.
Oh yeah, the Q.
The Q has let me drive his on a couple of occasions, and I have some great pictures of Quentin and I and some other friends at Mar many years ago, island hopping in the James River, with as one does.
This was the yellow truck?
This was before it was yellow. This was when it was green, and I have a picture of him. He was driving with people, so the truck is completely underwater. You can just see mid-queue, and you can't see anything. And you would drive through the dip and then come up onto the next island, and we drive around, and all the water would fall out. And,
so was this truck repainted yellow, or is this a different truck?
Yes, this was repainted yellow. This was originally green.
Because I own a later Series 1, which was originally imported by Q, and it's been handed down through a few owners. Now I have it. It was originally green. That's why I asked this question.
Oh, well, it's maybe this was the truck you own right now. So I'm not 100% sure on that. I thought Q just painted the truck, but maybe this is that truck. It was
stranger things have happened in the Rover community.
Stranger things have happened. I remember seeing this truck, and one of the things that always amazed me, he drives it, and after we go through the first big water crossing, he gets to the second one, and he's about halfway through, and he hits a rock, and he's underwater. The truck is completely underwater except for the windscreen.
Right.
And it stops, and he stalls it, and he reaches underwater and pushes the starter button, and it starts. And he backs up, and he drives more.
Yeah.
Until it finally hits another rock and he stalls. And then we dragged him back to camp where he proceeded to empty the milkshake out of the engine and gearbox and fill it up with more water and keep going.
Nice.
This is the special part of the podcast where we have some non-Rover content.
Okay.
I assume that you have a non-Rover daily driver.
Yes. So I do construction and property management. I have a 2024 Ford F-150 crew cab.
Nice.
And it's one of those things, I drive my Rover probably 2 or 3 days a week. It doesn't carry lumber. So when I have to...
Not long lumber.
No, not long lumber. If I have to carry lumber, it's definitely the pickup. But if I have to do work where I just have to show up with a couple of tools, I drive the 90 every day I can.
Good for you. Nice. What future plans do you have aside from the Anarch events this year? Do you have other events or places you'd like to get to?
He's going to be busy working on his 80.
Yes, the 80 probably won't come down. I am finishing up an engine rebuild on my son's 78 MGB. So that gets priority. So the 80 will probably come down in the fall. I'm hoping to hit some more events. I've never been to the all metal dash weekend, which is in Western Mass. I've always wanted to go there. I was actually traveling, but still wanted to do the weenie roast. I've never been to the Vermont weenie roast. I've been to Rover Bits with John Valoran, who is just a hoot. He hosts a weekend in Maine and just a lot of fun. That's a great event. I'm trying to the big one will be Minnesota, and I'm trying to decide, this year's an anniversary year for MAR, and I haven't been back in a couple of years. I think I'll try to make MAR this year and drive down.
You need to, when that opens up, I hear rumblings that they will have more than they did last year for registration, but it's still going to be capped, I believe.
And last year sold out in 3 hours? 2 hours?
It was like 10 minutes or something.
20 minutes? I don't know.
Ridiculous.
Yeah. And then they're going to, it is, you're right, a special version.
You'd think they were Taylor Swift tickets or something.
In our world, yes.
Would like to make those this year. That would be great.
I have a question, and it goes way back to the beginning of our conversation. When you did the coiler conversion on your 2A, you say that was the first one that was done outside of ECR. Yeah. Does that mean you were like in their parking lot working on it while they were standing there looking outside at you?
They weren't at the time. Mike was doing all the work in-house. So you couldn't go and buy a chassis. And Mike was very kind to me at the time to let me. I was the first person to buy a chassis from them and just build it myself. Up to that point, all those trucks were built in-house and sold or built for customers.
Very much their business model.
Yeah, very much. And they were great to me. They were such good people. At the time, I was totally in the deep end of the pool and trying to learn how to do all this. And they were kind, and I would send them emails and ask them, be haranguing them for questions. How does this work? And they were really good to me at the time. And it was a fabulous learning experience. You always hear Land Rover making owners mechanics. And
proudly since 1948.
That's been great. And that was my kind of education in Rovers, really learning to put them together and how they all went together.
Have you thought of a name for your Series 1 yet? Because you got to secure that license plate.
I have. And it was.
We may have to bleep it out so no one grabs it.
A custom plate that says Freelander.
Freelander. Oh, I have a little aside for you. But so right now, the leading name, which I think my wife gave me, is Moneypenny, because she's going to take all your money right down to the last penny.
There you go.
There we go. Scott, thanks very much for coming on the podcast, talking to us today about all your Rover history. That's really cool. We look forward to seeing you out somewhere at one of the events. Folks, feel free to go up to Scott and say hi. And thanks Scott for all he's done, because he's helping out at the Maine Winter Romp. He's helped out with Anarch and the Jubilee. And I'm sure you'll help out again.
So get your tickets for the North Star, and you can see him in person.
Star. Yes, the North Star.
We'll catch up in Minnesota if nothing else. So.
Yes, I will see you in Minnesota.
Okay, see you.
Thanks again, Scott.
Thank you. Thanks, John. Thanks, Harold. Appreciate it.
We hope you enjoyed show number 134 for May of 2024. Land Rover's 76th year, the podcast's 12th year.
We are beginning our 12th year.
We're in our 12th. We're in our 12th
We
year.
have
This is
completed 11 years. We are now in our 12th year.
And thanks to our guest this month, Scott Preston, who is a Land Rover power user, otherwise known as RoverX.
That's RoverX TDI to you, sir.
Indeed, it was great to talk with and hear all about his multiple builds and rebuilds and builds of the same bulkhead.
Yes, he has a bulkhead of which he has built several trucks around. That is a good start. That's where you start, of course. He just always thought it was a good starting point, except for his latest truck, which he took another bulkhead and narrowed it to fit the Defender-style roll-up doors on this 90, which is the first of his fleet to not carry the RoverX license plate. It was Solahal. That was at the Jubilee, and it was driven by none other than Nick Rogers around the course.
Which is a cool thing to be able to say about a vehicle that you built.
Cool.
Yeah,
it is cool.
And thanks to Harold and Morgan for coming on again, as always. Thanks for your contributions.
Yeah, sure. $10 is $10.
Thanks for having me.
Someday I'll get you that $10. And of course, a big thank you to Dixon for being part of Placid Lassie and commemorating the D-Day landings.
Yes. Thank you for your service, sir.
He has a proper excuse not to be on the podcast this time. And also thanks to the One True Pax for his continued production support. We appreciate that, Pax. We post a new podcast at the end of every month. If you're a new listener, something I wanted to add, I was talking to some listeners at the Pacific Northwest rally, and some of them were telling me how they listened to the podcast. And there were a couple who...
What, you met people who actually listened to this show?
There were actual listeners, people who actually listened to the podcast. You are correct. And a couple of them...
So it's not a complete waste of time for us? People do actually listen to it?
We're not speaking into microphones and it goes nowhere. There are people listening. There are some folks who listen and they might subject, depending on how you look at it, their loved ones in a vehicle in an enclosed space for a long period of time to having to listen to this. So I want to thank you, if you are not a Land Rover person and you feel like you're being subjected to this podcast, from all of us here, we do really thank you for supporting your loved one in this disease that they have, and they must listen to more content about the Land Rover. Do we have to listen to this again? Yes, they do. It is a requirement, and we thank you for supporting.
There ought to be a support group out there for spouses of Land Rover enthusiasts.
There's probably a research group around secondhand Land Rover podcast listening effects.
I like that. Secondhand podcast listening.
Mental and ear damage.
Could there be a podcast about secondhand podcast listening?
I think we're now required to start one.
No. Oh, no. You do that. You do that, sir.
See, this is what happens when you say, I wonder if there's a podcast about, say, Land Rovers. I believe that's how it started, was it not?
Pretty much. You are right. You're right. We do post a new podcast at the end of every month. Our website, CentreSteer.com, has all our shows, the past shows we have. You can listen to those right from the website. We also have a link to all the stories and the show notes that we have discussed today and in the past. You can directly support the podcast at patreon.com/CentreSteer, and that's center spelled in the British way, CENTRE. You can also buy us a t-shirt, a sticker, or even buy us a tea/brown water/drink of your choice. You can visit our website for all those details and links to how to do that. Thank you for listening, especially if you're forced to listen to the podcast. We really appreciate that.
Yeah, especially if you have no choice.
We'd love to hear from you and what you're up to in your Land Rover.
On behalf of the entire North American-based crew of the CentreSteer podcast, I'd like to thank you for listening today. We know you have a choice when it comes to your podcast content, and we do appreciate your choosing us. We also appreciate those who listen to us without a choice. Thank you very much. Again, we're sorry, but thank you. Please take a moment to look around you for any personal items you may be leaving behind, especially in the overhead bins. Remember that some items may have shifted during the show. Please watch your step as you make your way down the rickety scaffold, and you may now resume your important things. He's actually a serial series monogamist.